This is... Okay, this is what if Deku had the power of Hulk and both Brolys. This might seem random, but I think it works because they're all rage type. The type of Hulk I'm giving him is kind of like a combination of Planet Breaker Hulk and Dr. Hulk, which means he's born and he has the strength of Hulk, and he's a little kind of ball of muscle. He will be green. He will be green. But it won't be it'll be like the color shown here. It won't be a really dark green like most Hulks. So, if you're wondering where the Broly part comes in, when he's born, he gets that, and thing is, he's strong at birth, but he loves training. In this version, he trains his whole life. He wants to become the strongest hero, like All Might, so he trains his whole life. And he trains, and he doesn't have his quirk at birth, but he really doesn't. Okay, I'm borrowing this from a couple whatevers, sorry, little change on that. Sorry about that. Anyway, Deku, when he's growing up, Bakugo bullies him even more because sorry about that, it's shown that he doesn't have a quirk, and this makes him a laughingstock. So what he does is he gets mad. He's very easy to get mad. Although he's a nice guy, so he tries hiding his anger. He can get mad incredibly easy. Kind of like Bruce Banner, how he's always angry, but he always hides it. Yeah, it's kind of like that. And he doesn't know what he's about to do, and he goes into two things. A kind of berserk form of Legendary Super Saiyan Broly, and Berserk Broly from Super and from Z Uncanon. So he has that. And his hair, it spikes up kind of like this, but instead it's kind of going blonde. Because, the colors, actually, it's green. Because those two colors are green for the Berserk hairs. So, yeah, it's still green. And he's about that size when he is 4. Let's see. It's 4 when he gets that. He gets at the doctor's place. They say he does not have a quirk because he doesn't have that joint in his foot. So, because he has that joint in his foot. Sorry. Anyway, he finds this to be a very bad thing. And he's really devastated by this. He goes to the park because he was really sad. And he was playing with a toy. One of his favorite toys. Let's just say it was a limited edition or something, the one he had at the doctor's office. And he's playing with that at the playground. But Bakugo comes. And Bakugo's kind of a jerk in this one, so not much different from canon. Anyway, Bakugo comes and he breaks the toy. This angers Deku because there was only about 100 of those made. If you're wondering how Deku got it, it was kind of a sweepstakes prize. Didn't really matter. It was kind of whoever ate this much cereal kind of thing. One of those kind of things, whatever. Anyway, Deku, he's angered by this. And for the first time in his life, he felt what real anger was. And he starts going green. He grows. And Bakugo's lackeys are there. They're all acting real tough and all that. And whenever he gets really mad, he starts going green. And they don't see this because their eyes are closed because they're laughing at him. Ha ha ha. And what they don't know is that while they're laughing, Deku is growing. And he was a normal size 4-year-old, but right now, instead of being a little twiggy Deku, he gets bigger and bigger, and that's how big he is. And his hair does spike up like that, but a little different. And he's the reincarnation of both Brolys and Hulk. And by that, I mean, it's not that when he sleeps he gets to see them, it's more like they're part of him. He won't get any of their memories, but he has all their powers. So, yeah. Anyway, back to the thing. Now, some people see this, they call the heroes. And I'm going to say Best Genius comes. And Deku, being that he was just a little kid, he he was wearing his normal kid-sized clothes. He becomes this big, and I'm going to say he was wearing very stretchy pants. I'm going to change a little bit of the anime. He was wearing stretchy shorts, just stretchy shorts. And when they get there, they see this kid, and they don't know it's a kid. He's big as All Might, bigger actually, being that one of the brolys was 12 foot, the other was like 9 foot, and Hulk is I don't know how tall Hulk is. I think he's like 8 foot. Yeah, I'm going to say actually Hulk is 15 foot in some of his other form, in one of the Hulks. So I'm going to say that he's got like he's massive, and he might seem like he'd be one of those really stocky people at that height, but no, he's more muscular than he really should be, even at that height. So it's kind of like that, but with a lot bigger, and he is mad, and he's just saying kind of like what Broly had said, only instead of it being Kakarot, it's Bakugo, Bakugo, or Bakugo's first name, which is Katsuki, Katsuki. Although it doesn't really matter, but yeah, but he's kind of saying instead of Hulk smash, he's more like roaring of, I have a quirk, I'm not weak. And he's roaring that, and he's sounding really mean, and he's very dangerous. Now, when he gets back, now here's what happens. All Might, Best Jeanist, and Endeavor are there. And Best Jeanist, he does whatever he can with his quirk, which is not very much, being how little clothes this kid had. But then you have Endeavor. He goes trying to stop Deku. And being that he's really muscular, he can still take a couple hits and throw hands, even without fire. But he's still throwing fire at Deku because he thinks it's a real villain. They don't know it's a kid. They think it's a real villain, because that's what those reports were. Because a lot of parents were not there with their kids, and it was just passerbyers that just saw this hulking massive muscle throwing hands at a kid. And what happened when he transformed, he punched Bakugo and sent him and his lackeys flying, breaking Bakugo's ribs. Yeah. Anyway, and he's going right for an attack right back at Bakugo, until All Might's the one who steps in and blocks it, along with Endeavor, because they don't know how strong this person is. And all three of them, including Best Jeanist, they're all trying to stop him. Best Jeanist using fabric and all that, which I'm going to say he carries something, which I'm going to say it's a backpack made of fabric, but it's full of fabric. Made of jeans, actually. So he tries binding him up in jean fabric. It just rips on his skin because he is mad and he's got some heat coming off of him. Anger heat, which is a real thing. Anyway, Deku is beyond inflaming mad, so he doesn't even recognize them. He just sees them as puny weaklings. And that's all that's going in his head. Puny weaklings. And he keeps just hitting All Might, Endeavor. And this is before All Might had his injury, mind you. So Endeavor, All Might, and Best Jeanist, they see that they aren't doing much. So they go to... So that other hero, the guy from the beginning of the anime, with the whole weird costume, who cat that thing when that villain was on that train thing with them, yeah. And with the sludge villain who punched the sludge villain, his fist got sucked in and then he jumped away. Yeah, that weak guy. Anyway, these are three really strong people, because this guy had a power quirk. Anyway, these three are attacking with all they have. Endeavor, not one to usually use this, but he's punching, which he's surrounding his entire arm in flame and punching. He's overheated at this point. And there are some ice heroes there. I'm not sure who they'd be, just ice heroes. And they start cooling off Endeavor because he is exhausted and burning up to the point where he might collapse. So what happens is that Deku He's now just fighting 2 people, and he is putting in the work. Until All Might uses something kind of like Plush Ultra, but even more than that. He uses everything he has, and he's a lot stronger at this point, so boom. It shakes the entire city hearing that boom. That would be All Might's fist connecting with Deku's, which Deku, he is getting stronger every second, until Endeavor is recovered in a couple minutes. So for minutes, it's just been All Might and Deku just hitting each other, while that little power lifter guy has been just hitting as hard as he could, not doing anything. And they don't notice this, but Deku's growing, because, yeah, he's growing, getting stronger, kind of like Broly does, and like Hulk, so at the end of this, he's like 15 foot tall. Sorry about that. He's like 15 foot tall of solid muscle, and every hit he throws is stronger than the last, and All Might, knowing that they're all going to be doomed if he doesn't do this, tries punching him through a wall. What he does is punching him through 4 buildings. 4 very large buildings. Now, this doesn't really break the buildings too bad. It's more like it just puts a hole in it. I mean, it was support beams, but they were like really necessary support beams. In other words, it can be fixed really fast, so it's no big deal. Anyway, Deku, this angers him even more. And he's just going 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And he's hitting all 3 of them. And I'm going to say Midnight comes, and she uses her thing, and while it doesn't fully affect him, it's kind of like, to him, it's kind of like a mother's embrace, which calms him, slightly. Calming him, making him a lot weaker. And he's exhausted at this point, but he doesn't care. So he's fighting, he's exhausted and still fighting, and then, boom. They all come together with something I like to call the unstoppable hit, which is what they called it, just because I'm going to say they made that name up as they hit it. As they hit Deku, they're all going with Plus Ultra, and they all hit Deku as hard as they can into the chin to knock him out. They think just knocking him out will be the best call. All Might and all of them knock him out, although Deku starts shrinking down back into a kid. And as a kid, they're like, wait, that was a kid? And they're all confused. And Inko, hearing what happened, barely got there because, she was just driving in a car. She wasn't as fast as All Might, Endeavor, and all them, who just happened to be close by. She was close enough, because they don't live very far away. But she had trusted that everything would be okay because heroes were out. But she hears all that racket because this is a very loud hit. Even the entire city was shaking, kind of like an earthquake. And she hears about the whole thing about that happening, and she doesn't recognize Deku because she's just in a panic. She doesn't recognize the giant hulking figure being Deku. And what happens is, in the news, she sees that there's an attack there, and she rushes over to see if her baby is okay, not knowing that the attacker is her baby. Anyway, what happens is, she gets there to see Deku knocked out, and she asks what happened. And they actually ask, what is this boy's quirk? She told them how he didn't have a quirk. That's what the doctors told him. Sorry about that, guys. Just allow me to get this stuff out. Anyway, they take Deku to the hospital along with Bakugo and his lackeys because all of them are injured. They're not dead, but very badly injured. I'm going to say that the ageless hero, forgot her name. She heals people. Put her name down in the comments below. Anyway, she heals the kids, and Deku, being exhausted, he took hits that were powerful, but they didn't really break any of his bones, and besides, even if they did, Hulk has a healing factor. A very large one, too. So he doesn't have to worry about that at all. So, as he is completely exhausted. Give me a second, guys. Water, good for you. Anyway, Deku's tired and exhausted, but what he does is something that no one was expecting. He wakes up, and they give him something that's very good for calming. By that I mean Midnight stays there with him because they noticed that it had a different effect on him. It didn't make him pass out, it just calmed him down slightly. And they notice this because they're all keen fighters, and they tell Midnight to stay close by. And Midnight, she does, and she's just there trying to help. Which, she's more nice right now, and she's a really nice person, but we'll get back to that in a minute. Anyway, you have Deku, who is completely exhausted, but he's up, and they give him something that can heal him. Not really heal anything, just give him back his stamina. Kind of like an energy drink or something. And he's got his energy back, and he's ready to go home. But the police barge in, being stupid like they are sometimes in this anime, I'm going to say. They just say, "What is your son's quirk? Tell us." And they start yelling at Inko to do this, and this angers Deku slightly. I mean, yeah, it angers him immensely, but he's able to keep control of himself because they put him under a calming drug. And this calming drug is very powerful. There's only a handful who can even resist not passing out with it anywhere near them. It's more of a scented thing, but it can be taken as a pill to completely stop someone. Which, yeah, they gave it to Deku as a pill. More of like an injection, though, so... But he can take it as a pill or a drink or whatever. And he wakes up, and he just hears his mom being yelled at, crying. Because she is very worried about her kid. He walks out, angered immensely, but he can't he can't really tap into any of his strength. He actually says what's going on. They ignore him because he's just a little 4-year-old, but that drug starts to wear off, and Deku starts to grow, and now he's bigger than All Might by far. He's already been bigger than All Might. That fight, it took all of them standing on each other's shoulders just to be as tall as him. And they're all like 7 foot, 6 foot, 7 foot. They're all like 7 foot tall. And they're all standing on each other's shoulders just to look eye to eye with Deku. So that'd be 21 foot high. So he's that big when he grows to this mountain of muscle. But he looks more like that with giant, just being giant of all things. And they say it was very dangerous of that, and they actually have a video, which they didn't check because they're just stupid. Anyway, they have a video from a place that was like a grocery store, and it shows that Deku was being beaten up by the kids, which, yes, they were actually hitting him. They weren't just making fun of him. They were hitting him, and then they set him down and break his toy. So, this angers Inko, seeing that what happened to her baby was that. And All Might does something that I'm just going to say All Might can do. He gets another copy of that toy, hands it to Deku because he saw the video. Because he'd been out for because Deku had been out for hours, and it took them a good 30 minutes to do that, but like it took not even a couple seconds for him to go all the way around the town or wherever he wanted and come back, so no big deal. Anyway, they all get back. They offered that, but instead they just moved them into a house, a very large house, because Deku, as he grows a lot more muscles. And he's 6 foot at the age of 14, which is what he is in the anime, I think. Yeah, 14. Anyway, he's like 6 foot, and he's solid muscle, kind of like this right here, only he's actually stronger than this normally. So his base form, I'm going to call it, without any boost or anything, is that strong. As strong as 100% Prime All Might. Because he's been growing, and he's using the Hulk ability to his advantage. Now, this is what his skin always looks like now. And they notice this, and they don't question it, being that Deku, he might shrunk down, but that didn't change this. He still became massive. He was still big, but he was 4-year-old. Which means most people wouldn't listen to him, being that he was just a kid, no matter how big you are. But he's got a better control over his anger. He lives closer to UA, and they all have this thing to measure how angry Deku gets, and kind of like what happened with Broly, the whole shock collar thing. He's got like all the gear, like 2 neck things, just to shock him in case of anything. Inko has a controller. She doesn't like using it. In fact, it's more emotionally painful for her. I mean, physically, it hurts her nowhere near as much as it hurts him. But mentally, it hurts her a lot more. I mean, emotionally. Anyway, Inko does something quite unexpected that no one thought she would do. She takes that controller. She doesn't break it, like, at all. She just keeps it with her in her purse. And she keeps Deku with her. And as he grew up, he was more of he was actually taught at home. And he's smarter in this because he had the internet of all wisdom. And he uses that to get really smart. He's smarter than he is in canon, by far. He's super genius level, even smarter than Momo, by far. So what he's doing is he's just there, and he works out every day. You got the 10-month training. All Might, when he got his injury, Deku was actually one of the people who knew about the injury, because, I'm going to say Endeavor knew about the injury, and that's all I'm going to say. Anyway, they knew about the injury, the heroes did. A lot of heroes, but not very many. Like a lot of heroes, like the UA heroes. But that's it. And Deku knew about this because, a couple times when that controller didn't really work, they had to call in All Might. Because All Might's the only one who can stop him, ironically. And they saw the injury, and for that long time he was out. Instead, they were actually healing him. They had, the medical hero, I forgot her name, healing All Might along with Deku's blood, which his blood, kind of like Hulk from World Breaker Hulk thing, from Sakar, I think is how it's pronounced, whatever. Anyway, his blood can heal things, his blood can make plants, his blood is very useful for anything. And this is normal base form blood, but when he gets angry, if you can get blood out of that is like the strongest, most powerful healing element ever. By that I mean even a drop of it going anywhere near you is like a fountain of youth. It will heal you instantly. And by that I mean they inject some of Deku's blood in it because they have the same type of blood. I'm just going to say that. And he's got a little bit like, how muscular his quirk is? Well, that quirk of always growing the muscles like that, people think it's similar to that, being that they'd seen Muscular's quirk when he had done that to Koda's parents, and this time he had already done that to Koda's parents. Y'all know this had happened already at this point, so, yeah. Really sad, but yeah. Anyway, we'll get back to that in a minute. Deku, he is a lot larger than they think he should be. What he does is, every day, and Inko and them, they all get a lot of money and all that, donations and all that, hero payments and all that, because All Might wants to help. And Inko, her job is really useful. She has a stronger quirk in this, and it can not only levitate small things, she can levitate an entire building. Although it takes everything she has to levitate a single building and crash it down at something. Although usually she can just lift a building and just let it go and let it fall on something. That's how she could stop a lot of things. Although, if you're wondering why she would need that whole thing of the remote, it's because of how powerful Deku is. He can rip a building in half with one snap of his fingers. By that, I mean he is that strong when he goes berserk. And usually, what it usually takes is just Inko taking Deku and calming him down, which is just her hugging him and getting him to calm down. A mother's embrace, you could call it. Anyway, Deku, he does the 10 months of training, and for him, he just trains a lot harder. Now, he doesn't go to the same public school as he did in the anime, but he does still go to public school. Although he gets recommendation from All Might, and not the same thing as before. But he doesn't accept this. Instead, he goes and does the fighting thing. Now, he doesn't sit anywhere near Bakugo. Bakugo doesn't even know who Deku is at this point, because he's never seen it. But he knows who but he hasn't seen Deku in a long time, and he wants to keep it that way. He wants to like stay away from Deku as far away as possible. Deku does not get one for all in this one. And yeah, I'm giving it to someone I think needs it more, which y'all might not like this choice. I just think it'll be a lot better. And Deku goes to the same school as Mineta. And before y'all start spamming in the comments, Mineta is really bad. Well, in this version, Deku and him are good friends. And I might have said he was homeschooled, but that was like for a couple years. For like a couple years after he was forced to like 6 and all that. He was homeschooled until he was a little kid, but he still studies a lot. But he goes to a real school now, but he studies on the side, just so he can get a lot smarter. And he works out a lot. Basically, his workout and studying involves basically lifting weights and reading a book at the same time. Every couple lifts, he'll switch hands and all that, and he is able to use both hands as if they were his normal hands. If you're wondering what I mean by that, is it's like people who are right-handed, people who are left-handed, he can use both as if that was his dominant hand. I forgot what the word was. Whatever. Comment down below. Anyway, let's get back to the what if. Deku, he is going in. He goes to school, and Mineta and him, they are stuck in the same area. And Mineta in this version, he's a little bit bigger. By what I mean by that is him and Deku, they're good friends. And a lot of people who would pick on Mineta get just told by Deku, leave him alone. Which they are inclined to do, being that a lot of them know who he is. By that I mean it's famous of what happened. And a lot of heroes were there when they saw that. But they knew they couldn't do anything, but they were doing everything they could. It just wasn't anything, it wasn't registering. It was only those 3, Endeavor, Power, Loader, whatever his name is, and All Might, throwing hands at the most they could just to slow down Deku. And if you're wondering why it took Inko so long to get there, she was exhausted from picking up after a kid all day, which yes, being a parent is that difficult, so she didn't use her quirk. But what happens is Deku is in the middle of what he likes to do the most, which is just hanging out with his friends, or I guess you could call it friend. And they check him out, they see it's not a quirk, it's an even different power, and it's much better, and they see that no one else has this power, kind of thing. And they see it's kind of similar to the Hulk, because I'm saying it was a movie in their world too. And they say that's pretty interesting. And they just say whatever. And they start going back to what they do the best, which is just ignoring what happened that day. Anyway, Deku, he's not a villain. People think he's a villain, a lot of people do. But All Might and Endeavor and all them say he's a real hero, maybe even more than a lot of other people. He just didn't want to be, he just got tired of being picked on, which is what happened. Endeavor, he's a lot nicer in this version, being that he realized there's someone a lot stronger than All Might, being that it showed All Might, Endeavor, and Power Loader all hitting Deku at once with all the power they had. If you're wondering how Power Loader could do anything because he was just a weak side character, well, he didn't do much. It was just he was the strongest other person there. Which, yes, those power-enhancing drugs, I'm going to say heroes have those. Although, all it does is, like, it's a temporary boost to your quirk, which is called a quirk booster, which is mainly for heroes who are in a bad situation. They're only allowed, they take it, it's legal for them to take it if they're absolutely exhausted. And it took All Might, Power Loader, and Endeavor all taking these just to stop Deku. Which, yes, they had taken these while they were recovering for a split instant, as Deku was in a wall. Anyway, back to what part of the what if we were in. Deku, he is in the middle of a class, and the teacher does the same thing that the teacher with Bakugo had done, and says, would anybody like to become, what else schools are y'all going to? Who am I kidding? Y'all want to become heroes? They all say yeah. I'm going to say it's a different kind of quirks all in that room, but I'm not really going to mention whatever they are, because I really don't care. Anyway, Mineta in this version, he's a lot more muscular. He's actually around the same size as Deku was in canon after the 10 months. If you're wondering why I'm letting Mineta become big, it's because I have an idea. Anyway, Deku and him, they go out, they go get something to eat, because they're big friends. Although, that sludge villain attack still happens. And the sludge villain has no clue who Deku is, because it just didn't really occur. And seeing this kid, not really kid, thought it was a full-grown man, Deku, and it manages to do something that unlike in canon. I'm going to say it had the ability to make a sharp point out of its thing, and it uses that to poke Deku, trying to cut him, trying to get him to stop resisting, and it would put the blood back in as it took the body over. Anyway, instead, it gets healed by this and fixes the quirk. I'm going to say it was a girl, just because, it's a girl. Yeah. Actually, I'm making a small alteration. Everyone in this anime is a girl other than Deku, so he's also the first guy. So, if you don't like it, sorry, I just wanted to make this. Anyway, yeah, it's going to kind of be a harem thing. Although, Mineta... Okay, I'm going to scratch that whole thing about all of them. Yeah, actually, still all of them. But Mineta and all of them, that's his only friends. And being that they'd never seen a guy before, because it's kind of like he was the first guy ever born in this world, he was already famous from that. That's how he got so much money, for him eating so much food. And he eats 10,000 calories at least a day. That's his minimum, but 20,000 if he's going for training. By that I mean, yes, he does kind of like Eddie Hall's thing, which is a famous bodybuilder who broke one of the world's biggest records, and yeah, he does basically that as his morning food. Anyway, he does a lot of workouts. But what I mean is he's actually got these clothes that are weighted, kind of like Goku's, only they're easily 400 times heavier than Deku. If you're wondering how Deku can even wear these, well, I'm just going to say he can because he's powerful. And being that he's this big as the picture in his base form, then yeah, he's not light. He's not lightweight. Anyway, after the 10 months of training, they all go to that thing, and Deku sits, like I said, on the other side of the room from Bakugo. And Deku's giant, although they just assume he has a giant type quirk that he cannot turn off. I forgot what it's called. Anyway, mutation quirk. Anyway, they think he has a giant mutation quirk that he cannot turn off. And they think he's just a really big guy, and that's all. Anyway, Deku, he ends up going to the same place, although, remember, Bakugo is nowhere near him at this. And what happens is, and when he trips a little different, what happens is, he's not wearing any weighted clothes or anything, he's just wearing his normal clothes. Kind of like in canon, only in this version, he was just wearing a hoodie and some sweats. Not really sweats, just he's just wearing some normal clothes. And he wears stretchy shorts, kind of like Hulk does everywhere he goes. Although in the entire world, there's a lot of stretchy clothes, kind of like Mount Lady. Oh, I'm gonna go back to what happened in canon that morning. Anyway, when that villain was attacking, they had a power-enhancing drug, a really powerful one, that made them a lot bigger and a lot stronger than Mount Lady could be. Anyway, what happened was, while that guy was doing his attack and Mount Lady jumped in, he hit both of them in the head, both of them easily, sending them both flying. A hero saved the wood guy, but Mount Lady, she was falling, and she's still in her giant form. This makes Deku a little angry, because he doesn't like when people get picked on, so he jumps in the way, and he's giant, like 20 foot tall, because he's got the height of all of them added up. And he is freaking massive. Sorry if you couldn't hear me, I left a little bit away from my phone for a little bit. Anyway, Deku is just doing what he does best. He's protecting the weak. And he's not even he turned his quirk on for this, but no one's gonna have a problem with it, being that he just saved a hero that would have otherwise died. Anyway, he catches Mount Lady, and Mount Lady shrinks down as... Actually, no, Deku's not gonna be that giant. He's gonna be 7 foot at most. So he's 6 foot tall in his normal form. 7 foot when he actually... I'm gonna say he gets really big, but that's about it. Anyway, Deku, he doesn't get really tall, he just gets really big and muscular, kind of like the picture. Anyway, let's get back to what if. Deku he catches Mount Lady, being that he's a lot smaller than her, but she's a lot thin. She's a thin giant woman, so when he catches her, you can see how just big he is, but he's He looks a little small in comparison to her, kind of like to her knee, which is pretty high anyway, whatever. So when he catches her, she shrinks down to normal size, being that she just did. She just shrinks down to normal size, and he catches her while she's falling in her normal size. She can't turn back on her quirk because someone hit her with one of those quirk canceling things. Kind of like what that was, only it didn't cancel her quirk forever. It just, like, for a limited, kind of like for an hour, it would make it where she couldn't turn her quirk back on. So anyway, she does that, and she's not knocked out. She's just very freaked out, and Deku, after catching her, sets her down and all that. Okay, now let's get back to the actual part where this had happened. Ugh, whatever. The Sludge thing happened, and then all that. Anyway, let's get back to where I was before. Anyway, Deku is at the entrance exam, and he goes to the smart area and to the brains part of that whole thing where the test is, and they don't have anything that can fit him. By anything that can fit him, I mean desks. They basically have to pull in a giant desk that All Might had to carry in with how big it was. And All Might just for a split instant comes in, puts the desk down. It's freaking massive. Anyway, he sits in the desk, and it's twice as big as anything in there. It's also like twice as sturdy and made of this really difficult to melt metal, which is just a quirk thing. I'm giving people, someone has the ability to make a really difficult type of metal to bend or anything. So Deku is doing this, and he goes and, sorry about that, Deku goes and he sits down. He takes the test, and he is just giant in comparison to everyone there, even bigger than All Might. Without a doubt. He's like 8 foot tall in his bigger form. 9 foot if he's completely to the max of anger. So yeah. Anyway, Deku, he's doing just his normal thing. He gets a really great score. I'm going to say his score was absolute perfect, 100. Which, he actually is the top, the only person who got 100. Momo got like one question wrong and that's it. But that's still less than 100, so yeah. Being that she got a question wrong, that's why. And then Deku, he does what no one was expecting. They think he's just big and smart. They don't think he's got much power. He's just big for being big. And that's what some people think. But when he stands there, I mean, he had tripped and, like, Uraka actually hit his leg. And by hit his leg, I mean, she literally saw him falling down. She just touched his leg, which made him weightless. Although he is very heavy, she can hold 4 tons with that. But still, he's a giant mountain of muscle, which is, like, really heavy, and she can only do that 4-ton thing for a little bit. So before she trained her quirk, she could only hold like 200 pounds. He's like 400 pounds of solid muscle. And I mean, like, 200 pounds for a really long amount of time. But that, I mean, you know those robots were? She can hold like that normally. Now I know she was holding like 4 robots up, but they were lightweight robots. You could see them being easily sent flying by really weak attacks, like that belly button laser. Not very powerful. I'm just gonna say that. Although everyone being in this world is a girl, so that whole thing about him being angry, yeah, all that. So yeah, all the quirks are still the same. They're just gender bent, okay? So sorry if y'all don't like that. So anyway, Deku, being that he's the only guy, he gets a lot of attention for being the only guy, being so giant, and all that. You know what? Scratch that. He's not the only guy. He's just the majority of the Class 1A people are girls. Yeah, because I'm going to say they're usually, like, I'm gender baiting the people a little bit. Men are more, like, not liked, but, because they usually don't have quirks. But, like, everyone in Class 1A, they're going to be a girl. And when he gets into class, I'm just skipping over a lot of stuff, sorry about that. Anyway, what happened with the robot exam was that he does a little bit different. He does a thunderclap, which, along with all this power of the Super Saiyans and all that, he's easily able to shatter a planet with this. But he holds back enough to where he just shatters the robots. And he doesn't do very much damage to the surroundings because he's very smart about not doing that. And All Might trained him how to use a lot of strength without breaking things. I know All Might is not as strong as Deku, but All Might does know a lot about having a live in a world of cardboard compared to him. Anyway, Deku goes back to what he was doing, which was destroying robots. And that was, by the way, a flashback of him remembering All Might's teaching. Anyway, now we get to what Deku was doing. All Might was sitting there watching, and he's just astonished. He says this guy would be perfect for my quirk. And All Might being one of the very few male heroes. I mean, that power loader guy, that's still a guy. And, the wood dude, that's still a dude. And Endeavor, that's still a guy. But, like, that's it. Yeah, sorry. That, husband and wife duo for Koda's parents, yeah, that was still the same genders. Anyway, let's get back to this. And Deku starts going back to his fighting thing, and being that and he's the only guy who makes it in. There's a lot of guys who try out, but not very many can make it. Anyway, his strength is like unmatchable, and he hasn't even transformed yet. Not even into any of his weakest forms, which is, by weakest form I mean like it's just Hulk without any Saiyan power boosts. His strongest is all the Saiyan power with all the Hulk power put together, but he's just using small Hulk power, which not even that. He's just going at it with his bare hands. And he grows a lot whenever he does that, but usually he's just wearing a lot of stretchy shorts, so he'll be fine, but he's usually shirtless. Anyway, so, yeah, no big deal. So Deku starts just wailing on robots one after the other. He's already racked up like 900. I'm gonna say they have these things where it's like a ton of robots, which is like 1,000 points each. And by 1,000 points each, not really 1,000 points each. I mean, like, he's already got 1,000 points, which is shattering the record All Might made, which was 248. I got that from another what ifer. It's around that anyway. I'm saying All Might's record was 248. They say he's already shattered All Might's record. It hasn't even been 2 minutes. Deku thinks he's gonna sit there and let other people get some points. He sits there for a few minutes. Sorry about that, guys. And girls, just sorry about that. Deku starts going back to what he was doing. By going back to what he was doing, I mean he was just walking around, sitting there. And this time, when the giant thing comes out, there's a couple people who got trapped under it. By a couple, I mean there's going to be the girl version of Ida. Instead of running past, it's going to be a girl version of Ida that got stuck under it because she used reciprocal burst trying to kick a robot, which she kicked it, but she got hit by rubble. Real smart. Anyway, Ida is completely trapped under this thing with her legs strapped, and so is Uraraka, same thing. They're sitting there just hoping they're safe, and Uraraka cannot hit the thing because her quirk is exhausted. She's used all her quirk she can use for the day. By that I mean she's just exhausted with her quirk, and then Deku does something no one was expecting. They hear them scream, they're both screaming, and Deku goes blitzing faster than anyone was expecting. By that they've only seen his strength. Giant hits, kind of like All Might. And Deku does get one for all because someone had to get it. I mean, not really, no. Yeah, he'll get one for all anyway. Deku throws a massive punch. He goes blitzing past, and kind of like what happened in Canon, only this time, yeah, he already has one for all in his body because of that 10-month training. They already knew he could take it. They just wanted him to be able to use infinite percent, which is something I'm giving him. Anyway, he uses every power he has at once, including infinity percent, with one giant smash that shatters his arm. And don't worry, he has Hulk, so he'll be regenerating this in about 2 minutes at most. Doesn't even take him a minute to regenerate, so yeah, and that's an entire arm lost. This isn't lost, this is just very badly broken. So it's like way worse than it was in Canon, because he used infinity percent, which he put every bit of power he had into that one arm with a punch after he jumped off. And that hit sent that robot not only, like, it didn't just blow that robot up, it made that robot straight up sent flying through like 3 different training areas, which no one got hurt because this wasn't in training areas in use, but it was still storing a lot of robots. But that got him a point thing of 2,000. If you're thinking this is abnormally large for anything, remember he has the power to destroy planets with a flick of his finger. So and this isn't him going out angry. This is him going out with will to use his powers, which he's trained. But although y'all are gonna see what happens when he gets real mad soon. Anyway, Deku. Wow, it's 45 minutes. Maybe I should stop this part. He gets in. I'm gonna do something real quick. He gets into 1A. He takes his seat, and Bako gets there a little bit later because Deku goes really fast. Bako gets there a little bit later than Deku, and recognizes Deku. Absolute fear. Hides, if you would. Hides in his chair, just trying to seem like he's not even there. He's following all the rules, and Ida thanks Deku, and so does Uraraka. And this version, being that they're all girls, it's more terrifying, being that he's this hulking mass of muscle. So, yeah, he gets into that school, and that's where I'm going to be leaving this part off. Bye.